I'm back with Beth Sears, and she is the CEO of Workplace Communication. And she started her business at 58. So I'm going to ask you the question, Beth. When do you plan to retire?
I get that all the time. I got it today. I had an appointment in the city and I stopped to get some new wiper blades on my car. And I stopped at a friend's garage. He goes, "When are you going to slow down?" You know, and I said, "Why?" I said, "I will slow down." I didn't tell him this, but I've told others. I will slow down when I'm no longer enjoying what I'm doing and I no longer have any value to add. Then I'll quit. But I see no reason to. I've seen too many people. In fact, a person in our family who retired and immediately went downhill. And he was one of the healthiest people I've ever seen in my life. And my husband, when he retired, it was not a good thing. So he has picked up something that he is doing as a sideline. He kind of fell into it. And I think we need to feel fulfilled. And if you feel fulfilled, taking care of your grandchildren, all that, that is wonderful. I do spend time with mine, but you need to find a niche. What works for you?
Well, I agree with you. I mean, people say that to me all the time. When are you going to stop? Including my own son, but that's a whole other issue. And I say, because people retire to do what they always wanted to do, but I do what I want to do anyway. So why not, why not keep going? However, if indeed you must retire because you're working for a company and there is an age limit or whatever it happens to be, you need to have a plan. And that's what I tell people. When you retire, you still have to have a plan for living, because otherwise, I agree with you, Beth, you will just go downhill, and more people have done that. So whatever the situation is, you've got to make sure that you plan your day. So what are your goals for the future? I mean, where do you want to go from here?
Well, as far as my business goes, I do a lot. I love aha moments. I love creating aha moments in leaders and individuals. So I enjoy working with leadership teams to help them transform organizations into nicer places to be. And I love coaching individuals to help them improve the way they communicate and help them to look in the mirror, because my PhD is actually in interpersonal and organizational communication. But what I'm working on right now is a book on unmasked communication, how to create either a culture, how to be a leader, or how to be an individual who creates an environment where people feel free to communicate openly and honestly, much like Don and I have, because everything gets better when you are able to take off that smiling mask and tell people exactly what's going on for you.
Well, that is true. And the thing is that, and again, understand, listeners, that we're not saying be unkind to people by telling them the truth. We're saying, but don't say this is great when it isn't great. And don't say you're happy with something when it's not. It's like someone that says, where do you want to go to dinner? And somebody says, well, I don't care. And then when you get there, because they chose the restaurant and you don't like the food, you complain all the time. Mm-hmm. So, if there's something you don't like people will say to me, oh, there's this great seafood restaurant. Well, I don't like fish. So I say, well, do they have anything other than fish, which most restaurants do? But I don't hide and say, oh, I love fish and that's fine for me. So I think that's really important. But when you talk about unmasked communication, I know what that means on an individual basis, but what does that mean on an organizational basis?
If many of my leaders, my best leaders, I'll go in and I'll say, what are your major challenges? And they say, people problems. And one of them said to me, I go in a meeting and I ask something and nobody communicates. Nobody says anything. And then I talk to the supervisors and the general supervisors, and I find out that's because when they start talking, he criticizes them. Or he says, don't be ridiculous. This is how you have to do it. So unmasked communication would be for one of those supervisors. And you're right, Gayle, it's not ever about being disrespectful or rude. It's more how you communicate. And so the supervisor to say, when you said we didn't communicate, I felt frustrated because when I said and tell him exactly or her exactly what you said, you cut in and started berating me in front of the team. But doing it in a tone such as I'm speaking, and it changes everything. If I say when you, or I say when you, it has two entirely different meanings. So it's about learning how to communicate to get what you need in a respectful manner that meets the needs of both people.
Okay, now I get that and I understand that and I think that's wonderful. But what is going to give the supervisor the guts to do that when he is talking to a boss who holds his employment in his hands?
That's why I always start with leadership and help them understand what's in it for them to create a culture and give permission to their people and reinforce it when it happens, when people tell the truth. So often people are losing money in their organization. And one of the reasons they're losing money is people are scared to tell about problems. They try to hide them or they finger point, and that affects morale. So I work with the leadership team to really help them understand what's in it for them, to encourage people to communicate openly and honestly. And then when they do, reinforce it in front of the whole team. Thank you. I'm grateful you let me know. And the effect, had you not let me know, would have been A, B, or C. And because you have taken the opportunity and made a decision to let me know what's happening, we were able to save XYZ dollars, whatever it is. It starts at the top. Leadership really has to embrace it. And I help them do that because I help them understand what it's costing them when they don't.
I think that's great. I will tell you that I had a couple of experiences that well, it was good for the team, but it wasn't necessarily good for me. One was a bank and one was a florist. And after going through them and interviewing the teams and doing the teamwork and working with the leaders and so forth, the problem I knew was the leader. And so I did go to each of them and said, in not so kind words, because that was my job. I said, really, you are the problem. I said, you're not giving your team an opportunity to communicate with you or to state their feelings or to give you suggestions and so forth and so on. And although that was my job and I got paid for doing it, of course, they never brought me back in because I didn't tell them what they wanted to hear. And I think there are leaders who, well, hopefully that's changing, but I think there are leaders who just will not believe that they are the stopping block in the wheel because of ego and everything else. So I commend you that you are able to get that done.
Well, I use a lot with questions. I look at them, I say, gee, what do you think the effect is when Joe started to speak and you jumped in and cut him off? And then I'm just quiet and I let them think. That's one of the aha moments. And when they say, well, I said, no, let's stay with what do you think the effect is? And then they start getting the picture. And I'll use questions a lot because one of the things I do is I shadow people as well. So I'll actually give them real-time feedback about things I saw, verbally, non-verbally. They're not even aware. Their emotional intelligence is very low and they are not aware of the effect their behavior is having on others. So I help to hold up that mirror. I was with a coaching client this morning and she said, this stuff works. I said, yes, it does.
And she is a leader or she's a leader? A leader. Okay.
Yes. And
do you find women more receptive than men?
Oh, not necessarily.
Okay.
No. It's funny because men can come to blows and 15 minutes later go for a beer, and women can come to blows and 3 months later they're still
Well, that I agree. Yeah.
upset about it. So I don't think that women are more open to it. It's more about individuals instead of gender. There are some women who aren't going to take a look at themselves. There's men that aren't going to look at themselves, and vice versa with ones that will. But you just really have to build trust with them so that they trust that you're on their side and giving them the information that they need to be better.
Well, I really commend you for this because I'm also thinking of an example where I went into a law firm. They brought me in because the young attorneys, the associates, were not putting in the hours or billable hours. And so I said, before we even discuss anything, I said, I can tell you why they're not doing that. Well, why? And I said, because they're young and they don't want to put in the hours at night because they want to go home to their families and they want to spend time with their kids, and they just don't want to work the way you used to work and you're still working. And they said, oh, no. So they gave me the job of interviewing every single associate in the law firm. And I think there were like 20 some. And I interviewed every single one of them. And without failure, that was the thing. I mean, it came in one shape or another, but that was basically it. And when I went back to the bosses and I said, these are the results, and everything was in confidence. Nobody knew who said what. They said, well, that, and by the way, they were already billing something like 35 hours a week or 40 hours a week. But they wanted them to bill 60 hours a week, and they didn't want to do that. And so they paid me for the day, which, I didn't even want to take the money because I knew that I was going to get those results. But of course, they felt they had to pay me for my time. So they did, but they never brought me back to work with anybody because, again, it wasn't the result they wanted. So I commend you, Beth, that you are able to establish these relationships. I think it's great. So what would you tell yourself today? You're 66 years old. What would you tell yourself today that you wish you had known at 30? I can think of all kinds of things I tell myself, but what would you tell yourself?
And I'll be 67 in about a week and a half.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right.
I would tell myself that there's no thing such as perfection. I would tell myself, you have a lot to offer. One of the business coaches I worked with, believe it or not, when I first opened my business, I was, not sure I could do this. I had a PhD in interpersonal or organizational communication, 30 years experience in the workplace, and I was jockeying, and that was only 9 years ago. I was jockeying about what I had to offer. And she said, Beth, to a third grader's, a fourth grader's a genius. Do you have something you can tell people? And I go, oh, myself. Yeah, of course I do. She goes, well, then get out there and do it. So I don't want to give the idea that I'm perfect, which is something I tried to avoid. I constantly work on myself. I constantly take a look at situations and what I might have done better. And do I get 100% of the leaders to see my point of view? No, I'm not going to tell you that I do. But I do tell them, they say, why should I hire you? And I say, because I'll tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And I'll tell you the truth. And again, it's about, wrapping that in a manner or asking enough questions that they start thinking about it. But it really is, looking back to when I was 30, I was such a people pleaser, and I would set goals for myself that were absolutely impossible to meet, and then beat myself up for not meeting them. And so I would tell myself, don't be so hard on yourself. If you didn't have a parent who was supportive, and I also want to say I hold no ill feelings to my parents. I knew they did the best they could with what they had to offer, and they gave me a lot better than they had.
Yeah, but Beth, that's exactly how you should look at it. And that's another thing that I really commend you for, because a lot of people hold that resentment and, there's no point in it. It doesn't do anybody any good. So it's wonderful that you feel that way.
Well, it really is about understanding. And this is another thing with relationships. Each of us wears a backpack with every life experience we've had up to that point. And it determines how we choose to react or interact with somebody. We may 5 seconds later say, I wish I hadn't done that. But the truth of the matter is, we're driven by our life experiences. And when I got enough, I'll tell you exactly what happened. A turning point in my life was my parents pulled in the driveway, and my daughter had just made high honor roll with a 92 average. Well, one of the things my parents did was no matter what I did, they'd want to know what I could have done better. If I had a 92, they'd ask me, what was missing. If I came in second, who beat you out? And so they pulled in the driveway, and I ran out the door very excited, and I had good news. I said, Mom, Dad, good news. Tanya made high honor roll with a 92 average, and my father never missed a beat. He goes, send her out. I'll ask where the other 8 points are. And my rage was instantaneous. You do it to me, that's one thing. You do it to my child, that's something different. And I looked at him and I said exactly that. You did it to me, you will not do it to my child. And I turned and I walked in the door and the house and slammed the door. And we lived right next door to them. And I didn't go over as usual for a week or so. And my parents never talked about feelings or upsets or anything. After time, things would go back to normal, but it was never normal. And so when I did finally go over, thinking that I was going to have the dance of things would be normal, I was shocked when my father said, we need to talk. And what I found out through that talk was, as I was talking to him, he said, what did you need? And I told him that I needed to feel that I mattered. And he said, you had food on the table, you had a roof on your head, you had clothes on your back. What else did you need? I mean, he really didn't get it. And finally, I realized his frame of reference. And I said to him, I needed to matter. And he looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, I only wanted you better than me. And it was.
Well, that's true. He was coming from how he was raised.
Right. And so at that moment, it was like a 2x4. I go, oh my gosh, his intention was pure. His method sucked, but his intention was pure. And so I just kind of forgave them, understanding that they truly did the best they could with what they had to offer. And when they died, I've lost both of them, God bless them. And when they died, I have not one word left unsaid to either one of them. And I feel very good.
Yeah. Well, it's so true, because, and there, what you said about your parents, I can echo in terms of workplace. There are a lot of bosses who say, I'm providing you with a paycheck. Mm-hmm. I'm providing you with, hopefully, insurance, benefits. What else do you want? Well, maybe I want somebody that listens to my ideas. Maybe I want somebody who appreciates what I'm going through at home. Maybe I want somebody who, all kinds of different things. But the thing is that a lot of bosses feel you're getting a paycheck. And in fact, I used to teach that. And this was to people who said, I don't understand why I don't get a raise. And I say, well, why should you? And they say, well, I come in every day, I do my work, I'm not late with anything. And I said, yeah, but that is why you're getting your paycheck. Mm-hmm. What idea have you contributed that the business is running because you provided it? How much money have you saved the company by improvements that you've made? I would go through this whole litany. But the whole point is that it's funny how different people, approach different things. Now, you say there are certain keys that you practice to stay young at heart? And I know there's a lot of things I do. Somebody said to me the other day, "Oh my gosh, I never would have guessed how old you are." And I said, "Well, I work hard at it." So, what are some of the keys that you say are important to staying young at heart?
One of the things, I never think about age or aging. I don't. I think aging is something we all go through. Getting older is something we all go through, but aging is a choice, how you age. And so I stay very active. I, wear a Fitbit. I'm moving all the time. I'm constantly reading and learning and keeping my mind alert. I really don't think of my age much, and I enjoy my friends. It's just really a mindset. I've met people who have been telling me they've been old for 20 years, and I think, well, I'm old, I'm 50, and really? Because I truly believe whatever you think about becomes your reality. If you think you're old, you will act as if you are. If you think you don't have anything to offer, you will act in that manner. It's a mindset that you bring to the table, that you say, I have something of value to offer. I'm good at what I do. I look good. I do all my parts work as they did at one time. I'm just starting to have a little ache here or there, but I don't dwell on it. I mean, it just is. So
Yeah.
it really is that mindset of being young at heart.
It's true. I had someone say to me the other day, you can get older, but you don't have to get old.
Oh, nice.
And that is really true. And yeah, because I know people who are old at 30, and I know people who are young at 80, so it really depends on your philosophy, how you look at things, what you do, and all of those things. So we've learned a lot about you and your philosophy. Tell us about workplace communications, what it does, how people can get in touch with you, all of those kinds of things.
Well, what I do is, on an organizational level, I go in and I talk to leadership and help them understand how to create an environment where people are engaged and want to be. I've interviewed executives from Fortune's Great Places to Work across the United States, and what they do isn't rocket science. And I've also developed a protocol and some ideas, so I bring that to the table. And then on an individual level, I really help individuals to improve their relationships and improve how they think about themselves, because it really is your job and a process. If you focus on things in your environment and things that happen to you, you give all your power away to change anything. So it really is about taking a look at yourself and seeing what you could do better to be better in your career, to be better as a partner, whatever. And that's the one thing I love about my work. When I help people improve their communication, it's something they use at home, with their kids, at work. It really helps them across the board. So I can be reached at 585-538-6360. My email is beth@workplacecom.com, and Workplace Communication Incorporated. You can Google it, and I have a lot of blogs up there, but it's Workplace, WORKPLACECOMM.com.
Fabulous. Now, when we work with people, Beth, how long does it take? How long are you in an organization? Is it a day, a week, a month? Do you go maybe one day a month, or how does that work?
I'll give them a contract based on their needs. I do assessments when I go in and decide what protocol they need, and that determines how often I'm there. But almost every single organization or individual I've worked with, I give something extra, because once you get in there, you know this, Gayle, you discover other things. And so I help them to just get better. I have some contracts that are a year in length. Coaching is 3 to 6 months. So it really depends on the individual and the needs of the individual and their goals, what they want to get out of it, that determines the intensity of the intervention.
And do you do this all over? I assume that you travel and you do this all over. It's not just locally based.
I do. Most of my clients are local, but I'm also always love to go to Virginia because our son lives there. But I'm willing to, I know, but I'm willing to travel as well. But I just love what I do.
Well, I can tell you do. I mean, it's in your voice. You can hear it. All of that. So again, I want to tell everybody, you can go to workplacecom.com. You can reach her at 585-538-6360. Again, the company is Workplace Communication, Inc., and she is Beth Sears. Thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate everything that you've told us today, Beth. It's been of great value.
Oh, and what a pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I feel very grateful for it.